We see an opportunity to do what's right, to change business as usual, to become business as it should be, where people don't just live and work, they thrive. To do that, Colliers is committing to elevate the way we do business, to elevate the built environment. We will minimize environmental impacts in our own operations and through the services we provide our clients. We will increase diversity and inclusion in Colliers and across our procurement practices to create an atmosphere welcoming of diverse ideas and perspectives. We will promote health and well-being in our operations and through our client services to help improve lives. Together, we will elevate the built environment and build better for our collective future. For ourselves, for our clients, for our communities, for the world.
Brian, kamusta? I am now a member of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce. I joined last year. Why don't you join too?
Oh, I see. So what does the Cebu Chamber do?
The Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry serves as the voice of the Cebu business community. It focuses on initiating and seeing through the programs to ease and lower the cost of doing business in Cebu. Whatever stumbling block there may be, the Cebu Chamber is there to support business growth and resiliency in the community.
Well, that's for the community. What's in it for me, a small business?
Well, one of the services which the Chamber offers is the continued knowledge and skill upgrading for business owners and employees through trainings and seminars. It also helps small business like mine to be more efficient and productive through mentoring. Last year, we had a training in partnership with P&A Grant Thornton, which provided the tools and shared best practices to achieve digital transformations and business.
I'm very happy and proud to be a member of the Cebu Chamber of Commerce for 25 years. And I would like to advise everyone that the Chamber is really a big help in strengthening business linkages and supply all the data that are necessary about the vibrant business economy of Cebu. The linkages of a supply chain that your company can be inserted, and it can surely help the strengthening of your vital financial basic fundamentals.
Cebu Chamber holds its flagship project, the Cebu Business Month or CBM, aimed at inspiring, promoting, and growing Cebu business, making it more vibrant and dynamic. We, the members, look forward to it every time. CBM highlights 4 major thrusts: ICT BPM, tourism, entrepreneurship, and creative. I'm so happy to have been part of it for several years now.
Those are among the few things the Cebu Chamber offers to its members. Expect more things to come.
Wow, how nice. So they will mentor me, they will voice my concerns to agencies, they will help me look for potential business partners, and on top of that, I can widen my network to the Chamber membership. Nindot kay shabay. But tell me, how do I join?
For membership inquiries, you may call the Chamber office at telephone number 232-1422 or cell number 0917-490-0646 and look for Miss Joy, who will joyfully assist you.
Join na!
Connecting opportunities, growing businesses, creating value. These are what we make happen for you at the Cebu Chamber of Commerce.
The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DHSUD, is the primary government entity responsible for the management of housing, human settlement, and urban development. It was created on February 14, 2019 by virtue of Republic Act 11201. The department is a sole and main planning and policymaking, regulatory, program coordination, and performance monitoring entity for all housing, human settlement, and urban development concerns, primarily focusing on the access to and the affordability of basic human needs. RA 11201 consolidated the functions of the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board and the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council to become DHSUD, except for adjudication, which is now handled by its attached agency, the Human Settlements Adjudication Commission. The DHSUD also exercises oversight functions on its attached agencies or key shelter agencies, namely the National Housing Authority, which acts as the country's primary shelter production arm, the Home Development Mutual Fund or Pag-ibig Fund, which focuses on National Savings Program and affordable shelter financing for Filipino workers, the Social Housing Finance Corporation, which undertakes social housing programs catering to the formal and informal settlers belonging to the low-income bracket, and the National Home Mortgage Finance Corporation, which ensures the availability of affordable housing loans to finance home buyers through secondary market for home mortgages. It has 3 bureaus that primarily perform policy development, regulatory functions, and advisory roles. The Environmental, Land Use and Urban Planning and Development Bureau, which performs human settlements planning-related functions, including formulation of planning guidelines, national urban development policies and programs, technical assistance to relevant stakeholders, and land use monitoring. The Housing and Real Estate Development Regulation Bureau, which regulates the development of subdivision and condominium and other real estate projects, including the practice of real estate service by brokers and salespersons through the formulation, promulgation, and imposition of administrative fines and penalties pursuant to Presidential Decree 957 and Batas Pambansa 220, and the Homeowners Association and Community Development Bureau that formulates policies and programs to be implemented by the regional offices, monitors proper implementation of the approved policies and programs, and capacitates regional offices in empowering the HOAs within their respective jurisdictions. The department's operations are complemented by 1 technical service, the Public Housing and Human Settlement Service, and 7 support services. It has 16 regional offices strategically located nationwide to cater to the needs in the localities. Guided by dynamism, honesty, service excellence, unity of purpose, and dedication, the DHSUD will move forward toward its vision of adequate and affordable housing, inclusive human settlements, and well-planned communities for every Filipino family.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Colliers' first ever Vis-Min Property Market Briefing. We're very excited for this briefing as these are exciting times for the Visayas and Mindanao property sectors. I am Maria Cristorino Hosan, Director and Head of Office Services, Landlord Representation, your host and moderator today. But before we formally start this webinar, we would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge our event partners, the Philippine Daily Inquirer through Inquirer Property, Business World, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. I encourage everyone to stay for the open forum at the end of the presentations where experts from Colliers Capital Markets Advisory and Valuation Services will be present to answer your questions. So please send your questions through the Q&A chat box. If you want to receive copies of our speakers' presentations, message us through the Q&A chat box or email us at philippines.mortcom@colliers.com. Our team will reach out to you. And finally, before sharing the Vis-Min property reports, you may download it via the links provided in the chat box. So with that, let's begin our webinar. Visayas and Mindanao comprise 58% of the total Philippine area. These two island groups are home to 43% of the country's population and contribute about a third of the Philippine economy. While the country is still regaining its footing after 2 years of pandemic, we're glad to say that 2022 is showing us a lot of promise. In our last property market briefing in February, we noted that although office vacancy in Metro Manila will likely reach 18.9% this year, take-up is up by 18% in 2021, which indicates positive business sentiment. Shopping malls also saw foot traffic reach pre-pandemic levels in November and December. We also observe a shift in buyers' preference towards house and lot-only residential developments in the provinces. Economic recovery is expected to continue this year. After a 9.6% contraction in 2020, the Philippines' GDP expanded by 7.7% in the last quarter of 2021, bringing full-year growth to 5.6% and further boosting optimism about a rapid rebound. Economic measures in the form of legislative amendments and new laws have been put in place in an effort to help buoy the economy in the coming years. Tourism will also get much-needed boost this year. The Department of Tourism's push for domestic travel will greatly benefit Visayas and Mindanao, being home to some of the country's best tourism draws. In fact, a survey conducted by Colliers earlier this year showed that Boracay and Cebu are among the top destinations Filipinos would like to visit as soon as the pandemic restrictions are lifted. This, we think, bodes well for the leisure and hospitality sector. So what do all these mean for the property sectors for Visayas and Mindanao? What new opportunities are we to discover and unlock in these exciting markets? We hope to answer these questions in today's briefing. So now, thank you, Joey. Very insightful as usual. So now let me also call back Dom. Your presentations were indeed very informative, comprehensive. I'm seeing a lot of questions from our viewers. So let me invite you both back on screen, and also joining us for today's Q&A are Carla Domingo, Director of Advisory Services, Paul Chua, Director and Head of Capital Markets and Investment Services, Paul Vincent Ramirez, Senior Director and Head of Valuation Services, and Richard Raimundo, our Managing Director. Okay, hi Carla, Paul C and Paul R. Happy to have you back.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so let me start with the first question from Stephanie Lucero of Lopez Pacifica Homes Developments. From Stephanie Lopez of Pacifica Homes Development, what would you say will be the next property hotspots in Visayas and Mindanao for the residential and office sectors? Maybe Joey can start with the residential and Dom can talk about the office property hotspots for Vis-Min.
Well, let me start with Visayas. As I mentioned earlier, when you go outside of Metro Manila, speaking of the vertical supply, it's primarily Cebu, Mindanao, of course, it's Davao. But over the past few years, we've also seen more launches in Iloilo, the development of integrated communities contributing to greater supply of condominiums. And then you also have the likes of Bacolod, Rockwell, of course, launching its condominium project in Bacolod. Of course, you also have a few projects in Cagayan de Oro. But Carla here is really the expert for the Vis-Min region. So Carla?
Hi, Joey. Sure. Just to add to what Joey mentioned. So earlier he presented the various locations, Cebu, Iloilo, Davao. For Cebu, it's still your biggest and most mature market for the residential sector. It's a center of commerce, center of education. It's one of the most preferred alternative locations for office, or their second locations in the provinces. In 2021 alone, it sold 2,700 units for the vertical market, and that's just end user. Imagine if the office investors are back. So would the residential investors, the leisure. Imagine if they are back, the OFWs buying into residential condominiums. So that would contribute further to the growth of sales for the residential market in Cebu. For Iloilo, Joey mentioned it's a rising star in the Visayas region. We've seen increased commercial activity and developers continue priming up the province. So that would only mean an upward trend for the residential market. 1,033 units sold in 2021. It's better than pre-pandemic figures for the province. So it's really a rising star in the Vis-Min area. For Davao, it's still the preferred store of wealth, an investment hub for the Mindanao region. Despite of the challenges in 2019, fourth quarter, there was an earthquake, there was martial law, and then COVID happened. So it was a downtrend really for Davao in 2020, but actually we've seen an increase of around 40% in residential sales year on year, 2020 to 2021. So you already know that there is a start of recovery in Davao for 2021, and we believe that this would continue in 2022 and moving forward.
Yeah, Carla, to follow-up question on the next property hotspots. What do you think of Panay, Palawan? We're also seeing a lot of interest from BPOs in this location, but there's limited real estate option. Are you also seeing opportunities like in Panay, Rojas City, or Palawan, Puerto Princesa, or even the next big thing in Palawan, which is San Vicente?
Yeah, and investors will follow where supply is. And at the moment, there's no supply in Panay, or there's very limited supply, especially in the vertical market, as well as in the Palawan region. San Vicente, there's no condominium project there, but I know some of the developers are already looking at that certain city. Same with El Nido and Puerto Princesa. Puerto Princesa, there are condominiums already in place, and we saw that take up in this specific location is actually quite good. There are investors looking at this specific cities, looking at the leisure market, and I think it's a very good option for investors as well as developers.
Thank you, Carla.
Sure.
For the office sector, next property hotspots that people can look into besides the usual Cebu, Davao, Dumaguete, Iloilo?
Yeah, I agree with what Carla said, that developers can build and clients will come. That's also true for the office market. And we saw that in Iloilo. It has always been, the Iloilo Business Park for the longest time in Iloilo. But then because of the gap in the supply, we saw other locations that have come up, even local developers. We signed up IGT in Iloilo last year with a local developer. I think the building is called Iloilo Gateway. So for so long as the other factors that are important to them are present, like of course talent, and of course related to that is the accessibility. And then these are the key things that would make a location viable. So of course there's that saturation point, right, in terms of talent, but we know that there's an annual graduates that are being produced every year. So look at that. And with our education system, with the K-12, we know that BPOs are not limited to hiring college graduates. They can train even those that are undergrad for so long as they are of legal age, right? Of course. And so they are partnering with the universities out ICT councils to train and bring the level of expertise or capability to the level that's acceptable to them. So And by working with these ICT councils, there's that synergy that will be formed with the developers who are willing to take the risk and build the office building. Because even if a location has the talent, the problem is the BPO grade, availability of the BPO grade building. So it could be a chicken and egg, and sometimes it just needs somebody to take the risk and build. So Palawan, yeah, fine, up to a limited capacity, and other key cities, even Aklan, right? So
yeah, I agree with you, Dom. It's really a united effort between among LGU, landlords, ICT councils, infra development also an area to make it really viable for BPO locators to invest and grow in these provinces. So Dom, a follow-up question for office lease rates. When do you expect to see lease rates improve in Cebu? This is from Juan Ortiz from BPI.
yeah, so if you look at the trajectory of the vacancy line, that's gonna be when we expect it to start falling based on available information, it could be 2023.
2023, we'll see improved lease rates in Cebu. Do you see any new locations in Cebu or neighboring areas in Cebu? This is from Michael Baguio from Cognizant Technology Solutions. Are there new IT locations currently in development in Cebu or nearby areas in Cebu?
Yes. Hi, Mike. Yes, of course. I mentioned earlier that because of what happened with Odette, one learning is that to be in a location where it's complete with, say, housing options or temporary options through the hotels. Right. So there are available locations like, of course, the Robinson's Galleria Cebu. It's in a complex with a mall, residential condominium soon, and then an existing hotel. And what this kind of developer can do is to prioritize their tenants in terms of the use of these facilities. Right. So in terms of a BCP capability, you are assured that if there's a need to what they call is trigger the partnership with the hotel, you're assured of that with a developer like Robinsons and the others who have complete kind of developments.
Okay, thank you, Dom. Now let's go to Davao. RJ Lumawag from Sunstar Davao. So I think, Carla, this is for you. Prospects of the real estate industry in Davao City, this 2022-2023.
Yes, so I mentioned earlier, that it's still a preferred location for investment, residential investment, and there's in 2020 and 2021, there's just challenges that Davao faced. It's really out of their control. But we see that when developers launch, they get taken up. Actually, for Davao, those that launched in 2020 and 2021, they're already 57% sold as of the end of 2021. So it means that there is demand. There's just very limited supply because of the challenges that they faced in the past 2 years. And we're seeing the growth already year on year. So I think that it's still a very potent market, and it would still retain its stature as the preferred investment hub and store of wealth for Mindanao.
Thank you, Carla. Paul C., industrial opportunities in Davao?
Industrial. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of planning happening in Davao, particularly towards the outskirts, closer to the Samal Bridge that's being built. But to be more general, I think if you look at the planned infrastructure developments, I think those would be the ideal locations for new industrial properties to be developed, and I guess more planned unit developments also to support that job creation that's being done by these industrial projects. So yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Joey, any emerging trends that we see for Davao City? Joey, you're in mute.
Sorry, I think similar to what we see in Metro Manila is the development of more integrated communities in Davao. I like what Carla mentioned earlier, which is that Davao being a store of wealth. So really a lot of investors looking at Davao's viability. I think what also developed over the past few years is the expansion of these townships. So more developers, both national and even homegrown developers, looking at the viable parcels of land that they can acquire and which they can eventually develop into integrated community. So you even have foreign branded hotels already in Davao. You have major players in Davao already partnering even with the local, the homegrown developers. So moving forward, we're likely to see this trends definitely. Carla might want to add a few insights.
Yeah, I think trends that for the well, more for residential, it's really just putting in mixed use communities, because Davao is such a big city. It's very hard to travel from one place to another. So bringing in office locations nearer to the residential locations would be a plus for developers. Lining up projects, residential projects, both horizontal and vertical, because the market is there already. So I think that would be something that developers should look at for Davao City.
Thank you, Carla. Carla, for the condo market forecast for Bacolod and CDO, what's our forecast for the condo market?
All right. So first, I'll answer for Bacolod. No, it's a smaller market compared to its Vis-Min peers, particularly Iloilo and Cebu. However, because for the past 3 years, we've seen an increase of developer presence. Cebu Landmasters is there, Ayala is already there, Vista, Mega World, RLC, Rockwell is there. We're going to see some increase in activity for the residential market. It was quite a challenge for the vertical market at the start, just because there's a lot of horizontal options. And then Bacolod is such a smaller city. And then you also have options in Silay and Talisay, which is very close to Bacolod. But again, new launches have been picking up, and the sales of these new launches is quite high. For those that were launched in 2020, they're almost 60% sold at the end of 2021, and those launched in 2021 are at 20% sold. So there is a market, but limited supply at the moment.
Thank you, Carla. For Paul R., do we see land values in major Vis-Min cities decline or increase during the pandemic?
Okay, so for land values, especially for commercial properties, as land values usually trend with how the office and retail and all the commercial establishments are faring as well. So they do follow that trend, considering that that's the ultimate use, that's the best use of those assets. However, because of the scarcity of these types of prime commercial land, we see that there is stability. It's a more stable pricing when it comes to commercial property. Compare it with, say, residential. So residential properties in major cities, we see that it's very stable, especially for the mature and developed communities already. But for newer ones, that's where the challenge is, especially for residential subdivisions that's not yet occupied by the locators.
Thank you, Paul. Another question, Paul R. If I own a large enough developable land in any key market in Visayas and Mindanao, should I hold, sell, or enter into a JV?
If you are, if the landowner is not a property developer, the wisest thing to do really is to partner with a known developer, so that they can maximize the brand, the marketing effort, and all the things that's necessary to really make real estate development work. So that's the best thing for landowners.
Thank you, Paul. Carla, is it a good time to sell office spaces now in Cebu for investors that bought office space in Cebu? Is it a good time to resell their office spaces?
Yeah, I'll answer very little. Maybe Dom can also supplement my answer. Well, Dom mentioned earlier that vacancy is quite high in Cebu, but there is an increase, a very big increase in terms of transactions. And we see that transactions in 2020 will also increase moving forward. So I guess, or I think investors in office should hold on to their units and try to, lease it out as transactions get better, instead of just selling it at a lower price or a market price, just to maximize their investment and gain more in their capital values.
Thank you, Carla. For Joey, what do you think is the take-up of lot-only developments in Iloilo for high-end lot-only developments in Iloilo?
We are definitely seeing new supply in Iloilo for lot-only developments. I think outside of the major business districts, which include, for example, Iloilo Business Park, the lot-only take-up remains strong. And if you look at key locations in Visayas, or the lot-only segment remains viable. Of course, Iloilo is definitely one of those. But of course, much of the lot-only projects, the new ones, will be coming from the fringes, really outside of the business districts. Because if you look at the townships, the major business hubs, land values in those areas are really soaring. So it is only in the fringes where you will see the launch of new lot-only projects.
Thank you, Joey. Dom, is Cebu still considered saturated for IT BPO locators? Which provinces would you recommend for occupiers to prioritize in their expansions in Vis-Min?
Yes, that has been the complaint of BPO occupiers, the saturation of the talent pool that resulted in high labor cost, which is already approximating the Metro Manila labor cost. So I think with the decentralization that's happening within the Visayas region, say BPOs expanding in Bohol, in Iloilo, Bacolod, I think there's going to be an adjustment there. And also with the infra developments, that's going to expand the reach of BPOs in terms of the hiring within Cebu itself. So I think there will be an adjustment there, and that's going to provide more room for growth moving forward.
Dom, another question. What do you think, or your forecast, how long it will take Cebu to reach single-digit vacancy again in the office market?
Yeah, so again, there are 320,000 square meters of available space, plus 60,000 this year, and then so 320,000 square meters are projected to be taken up in about 4 to 5 years. But again, with what's happening right now, that the restrictions are being lowered, and I think there will still be physical distancing in the office. So, and then couple that with the expansion that happened during the pandemic in terms of hiring for the BPOs, I think that would result in immediate space requirements, plus the expected, expected expansion from the BPO, similar to what happened after the global financial crisis. So outsourcing remains to be, if not the most effective, one of the effective ways how to revive and grow again for US companies. So we're just being conservative in our projections, but if our expectations are reached, then probably in the next 2 years, we'll see lower vacancy.
Thank you, Dom. Let's go to the office sector in Cagayan de Oro. Based on your experience for BPO companies looking at Cagayan de Oro, are they looking at downtown CDO or uptown CDO? Where do you see opportunities in Cagayan de Oro?
So the last transaction we did is in downtown CDO. So that's an expansion, probably the first since the last 2 to 3 years. So because the space is better, and I think it's more complete in terms of the ecosystem, so it's downtown. I'm not sure if the flooding has been addressed. Probably it is. It has been addressed already. That's why this BPO expanded in the downtown area, because that's only that used to be the problem in the downtown area. That's why developments have moved up to the uptown area.
Thank you, Dom. For Joey, what is from Audrey Villa? What is our projection for Vis-Min vertical projects? this 2022-2023?
New supply for Vis-Min residential vertical projects. So you will have new projects definitely in Cebu, Iloilo, Davao. Let me just check the figures here. So a pretty healthy pipeline, especially in Iloilo, where there will be about 940 new units every year, 2022 to 2025, 2,540 in Davao, and about 5,230 units in Cebu. So that's the annual new supply every year from 2022 to 2025. Unfortunately, the take-up for the vertical projects year on year, if you compare 2021 versus 2020, was done for these three locations, Iloilo, or for the two locations, Iloilo and Cebu. So the drop was between 30 to 40%. But the positive side for the Vis-Min area for the take-up of vertical projects is Davao, which recorded a 28% increase in take-up for vertical projects in 2021. So that's a positive year-on-year change, and that's a very good sign for Davao. Hopefully, the economic growth, the return to offices, and the expansion of more businesses will have a positive impact on vertical unit absorption beyond 2022, and recover from negative take-up, which we saw especially for Cebu and Iloilo in 2021.
Thank you, Joy. Carla, from Noel Yaneza, is there a market for high-end horizontal developments in Cebu?
Yes, definitely. We saw some launches in the high-end market, and they were indeed taken up. So, investors are also looking at diversifying their property. So not just vertical residential condominiums, but also lot-only high-end, especially in the mountain areas and on the fringes of Cebu City, where they are near leisure properties. So Mactan, you have Liloan, you have Danao, and then you have the uptown part of Cebu, very near the mountainside. So yes, there is a market for the high-end lot-only projects for Cebu City.
How much is the lot-only high-end projects in Cebu, approximately per square meter?
Well, that ranges, current average of lot only in Cebu is around 15,700 pesos per square meter. So the range is from 10 to 40. So it depends on the location and the project and the developer as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Carla. For Dom, from Noel Basabi, during the Odette situation, what changed in terms of space requirements from locators who are or were looking for office space in Cebu?
Change. It would be in terms of what do you call this? The redundancy of the power supply of the buildings. Ano pa ba?
And I think the need
housing
for service offices also.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, the need for service offices, immediately available spaces that tenants can occupy for a short period during calamities. So these are the things, and because BPOs not just have the BCP capabilities, not just within Cebu. BPOs have the ability to transfer work from Cebu to other parts of the country, say Metro Manila, if they have Metro Manila operations, or even shift the work to India. So that's how robust the BCP capability of BPOs. But if we're talking about Cebu only, yes, those are the things that they need to look for when choosing a location.
I think, Dom, what's also interesting to find out is, like Marie Chris here, who represents landlords, how are developers responding to these BCPs, the business continuity plans of the tenants?
Yes, that's true, Joey. Landlords are, were challenged during Odette, and now that they know that they should be ready for these kinds of situations. Dom, from Katrina Tordilla, are Metro Manila employers more likely to implement work from home or flexible work arrangement than provincial employers? And do you see the provincial demand bounce back quicker compared to Metro Manila, or the opposite?
Yeah, I don't have any indication in terms of the propensity, the comparison of the propensity of employers in Cebu and Manila. But what I know is that hybrid work model is here to stay. We've seen that with the proliferation of serviced offices, and that's going to continue moving forward. Actually, it's the more appropriate word right now is remote work. Right, so that's going to continue to happen. I think in terms of the magnitude of the application or the implementation of this depends on the readiness of the companies.
Dom, Pogo question, are we seeing newer or bigger Pogos setting up operations in Vis-Min?
That's a good thing about Cebu. That's why we immediately saw a positive net take-up in Cebu, because the exposure of Cebu with Pogos is very little, unlike Metro Manila. That's why the negative take-up in Metro Manila has continued until last year because of the high exposure of Pogos. So do we see them in Vis-Min? Personally, I haven't heard any right now.
Yeah, we haven't heard any too right now. Carla from Avon Manantial of Vistaland, what income segment is most viable to target for Cebu in terms of vertical or horizontal residential developments?
Okay, that would highly depend on your location and the market that you are targeting. No? For Cebu, kasi there are very different markets. So number one, you have the end users. So that would likely be playing in the economic and affordable segments, maybe some in the mid-income segments. If you're looking at the leisure market, so you're looking here at upscale and luxury segments. If you're looking for, or if you're targeting the investors, residential investors, that would be the mid-income segment for both horizontal and vertical.
Thank you, Carla. Joey from Katrina Tordilla, which domestic destinations do you think would experience a major travel boom in the next 3 to 5 years?
I would say the obvious ones. Remember when we had our February 9 briefing, we asked our respondents, our viewers, question on, where do they plan to travel once the government removes all travel restrictions, and Palawan remains the primary choice. So about a third of the respondents saying Palawan, and it's still a top choice. And when we had a briefing 6 months ago, it's Palawan that was still the most preferred local destination. So I would say mostly beach destinations, the likes of Palawan, Boracay, Iloilo, but eventually it also depend on the restrictions imposed by local governments. I know Maricris went to Coron, and I think there were stricter restrictions, right? So eventually it would really depend on, how the local governments relax these travel restrictions, because this will also hinge on the recovery of these tourist destinations.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joey. It's really how the LGU will really lift the restrictions. Like for Palawan, you still require RT-PCR test, antigen test, so a lot of strict regulations. And I think also opening the flights to these various islands in the Philippines would be indicators of where travel boom would happen in the Philippines. For Paul C, land banking opportunities. Paul C, which Vis-Min market should developers consider for land banking?
I think similar to what I mentioned earlier. So if you're an existing developer, the delayed plans because of the pandemic will lead you now to trying to expand your existing developments. So that's one area for land banking. If you're not in a developer company, try to look at the infrastructure projects being built in these locations. But in terms of location, other than outside of Cebu and Davao, I think Iloilo, Bacolod, General Santos City, there are very good locations to possibly start looking for new planned unit developments, because the demand is there, the talent is there, and I think it'll be a good way to start new developments in these areas.
Policy from Jonathan Martinez. Are we seeing demand for data centers in Vis-Min?
There are data centers in Vis-Min. Cebu basically has about 2 or 3. I think we should see more in the next couple of months of new data centers trying to look at these locations. But obviously, it cannot be placed just anywhere. So the main problem that I think what's hindering data centers is this BCPs, number one. The recent typhoon showed how the resiliency of Cebu, no? So we might be able to capitalize on how they were able to react to the national to the calamity that just happened. But yeah, I think Cebu particularly, and maybe some locations in Davao, is suitable for data centers.
Yeah, Paul, agree. I think it's really redundancy in power. Infrastructure should be there that will really attract this data center locators in Vis-Min. So that ends our Q&A portion. Thank you again to our speakers and panelists, Joey Roy Bondoc, Dom Frederick Andaya, Carla Domingo, Paul Shua, Paul Vincent Ramirez, for sharing their insights and giving us a comprehensive look at the property sector of major markets in Visayas and Mindanao. And now, before we go, we'd like to once again thank our event partners, the Philippine Daily Inquirer through Inquirer Property, Business World, the Cebu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development. To officially close our program, let's hear our final remarks from our Managing Director, Richard Raimundo.
Thanks, Chris. So as our COVID numbers continue to drop and the country heads into alert level 1, we are hopeful that we have indeed turned the corner. In Vis-Min, while supply continues to be daunting, there is no doubt that the current level of interest and inquiries has improved. Office tenants, particularly the BPO segment, is reassessing their space requirements right now. In the residential segment, we saw that there are green shoots in the house and lot categories. With this optimism, let us all work together to get the real estate industry moving again. Thank you for joining us this morning, and please reach out to us for any requirements, and we would be very happy to assist. Again, stay safe, stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. You are welcome to reach out to any of us, our team, for further questions or would like to receive more information about our presentations. Please do register and attend our Colliers upcoming webinars. Part of our Live Spaces webinar series is a Power of Two, Tech and Workplace in a Hybrid Setup, happening on March 9, Wednesday. This webinar will feature speakers from global service office provider IWG, leading tech provider NTT, and prominent design and architectural firm PDP Architects. So you have here on your screen the QR code, so please register. Then on March 16, we will be holding a webinar on building sustainable workplaces. Organized with WebEx by Cisco, this webinar will feature speakers from Colliers Singapore Workplace Advisory Group, Cisco, and Hearn & Hearn Consulting. To know more and register for this event, please scan this QR code on your screen shown now. If you'd like to stay updated on the latest news and insights on Philippine property market, please follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Twitter. You can also visit our website, colliers.com, to download our copies of our report. If you'd like to hear more from Joey, he has a weekly column in the Philippine Daily Inquirer called Colliers Review. It comes out every Saturday in the newspaper's property section, so make sure you grab a copy of the Inquirer. Once again, on behalf of Colliers, thank you for joining us today. Stay safe, stay healthy. We look forward to seeing you once again soon. And we hope that as things gradually continue to get better, we finally see each other in person in a face-to-face event this year. Goodbye, everyone.